My name is Robert, I'm 72 years old, and for 3 long years, my own grandchildren treated me like I was invisible. 3 years of forgotten birthdays, unanswered phone calls, and family gatherings where they'd barely look up from their phones when I walked into the room. I watched other grandfathers at the park playing with their grandkids while mine couldn't even be bothered to return my texts. I'd raised their father, my son Michael, with love and discipline, taught him everything I knew about respect and family values. But somehow, his kids, Emma, 16, and Jake, 14, saw me as nothing more than an outdated relic from a bygone era. Every holiday, every family dinner, they'd sit there scrolling through their phones, treating me like furniture. But what they didn't know is that I had an ace up my sleeve, something that would change everything between us forever. Listen to this story until the end and tell me what you would have done in my place. Before I continue, I want you to tell me what city you're listening from in the comments below. I love connecting with people from all over, and your stories matter to me just as much as mine matters to you. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories. Let me take you back to where this all began, to understand how a man who once had everything slowly became invisible to his own family. I grew up in rural Montana in the 1950s, when a handshake meant something and family was everything. My father, William, was a rancher who taught me that respect wasn't given. It was earned through hard work and integrity. Every morning at 5 a.m., I'd be out there feeding cattle, mending fences, learning that nothing worthwhile in life comes easy. I married my beautiful wife, Margaret, in 1973. She had these sparkling green eyes and a laugh that could light up the darkest room. We built our life together on 40 acres outside Billings, raising cattle and growing our own vegetables. In 1975, our son Michael was born, and I swear I'd never felt joy like that before. Holding that tiny baby in my calloused hands, I promised him and Margaret that I'd be the best father and provider I could be. For 25 years, I worked double shifts at the local mining company while maintaining our ranch. Margaret and we sacrificed everything for Michael's future. We saved every penny we could for his college education, driving our old pickup truck for 15 years because we knew that education was the key to a better life for our boy. Michael grew up strong and respectful. He'd help me with the ranch work, and we'd spend hours talking about life, about dreams, about what it meant to be a good man. When he graduated valedictorian from high school in 1993, I cried like a baby. All those years of sacrifice had paid off. He went to the University of Denver, studied business, and met Sarah, a beautiful girl from California. They married in 1998, and I walked my son down that aisle with more pride than any father should be allowed to feel. Sarah was sweet, but I could tell from the beginning that she didn't quite understand our simple, rural way of life. In 2004, Emma was born, followed by Jake in 2006. Those early years were magical. I'd drive the 4 hours to Denver every month to spend time with my grandchildren. Emma would run into my arms screaming, "Grandpa Bob!" and Jake would climb on my back like I was his personal jungle gym. We'd go fishing at the local pond. I'd teach them to whittle wood and tell them stories about the old days on the ranch. But then something started to change. As the kids grew older and technology took over their lives, I began to feel like I was speaking a foreign language. When Emma turned 10, she got her first iPad. Suddenly, our fishing trips became sessions where she'd sit by the water, not casting a line, but staring at that screen. Jake, who used to beg me to teach him to drive the tractor, became obsessed with video games. Sarah, God bless her, tried to bridge the gap, but I could see she was fighting a losing battle. Michael, my own son, got caught up in his career as a successful marketing executive. The boy who used to help me milk cows at dawn was now working 12-hour days and traveling constantly for business. The visits became less frequent. The phone calls shorter. The excitement in their voices when I called gradually faded to polite but distant conversation. "Hi, Grandpa. Yeah, school's fine. Can I go now? I'm doing homework." Margaret noticed it too. She'd sit on our porch in the evenings, looking out at the sunset, and I'd catch her wiping away tears. "They don't need us anymore, Bob," she'd whisper. "Times have changed." In 2019, Margaret was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. The doctors said it was aggressive, and we had maybe 6 months if we were lucky. I called Michael immediately, told him his mother was dying and that we needed the family together. Emma was 15 then, Jake was 13. They came to the ranch for what we all knew would be Margaret's last Christmas. But even then, even with their grandmother dying in the next room, they spent most of their time on their phones, AirPods in their ears, disconnected from the family gathering. I watched Margaret's heart break a little more each day as she tried to connect with them, tried to share stories, tried to pass on the family traditions that had meant so much to us. But they were polite strangers, going through the motions. Margaret passed away on January 15, 2020, just 3 days before her 69th birthday. At her funeral, Emma and Jake stood there, dressed appropriately but emotionally absent, more concerned about when they could go home than grieving for the woman who had loved them unconditionally. That's when the real isolation began. After Margaret's death, the calls stopped almost entirely. Michael would check in once a month, but the conversations were brief and felt obligatory. Emma and Jake? They disappeared from my life completely. No calls, no texts, no visits. I'd send birthday cards with money inside. Never even got a thank you. I sold most of the cattle and started living off my pension and Margaret's life insurance. The ranch felt empty, too big, too quiet. I'd sit in Margaret's rocking chair on the porch every evening, watching the sun set over the mountains, wondering where I'd gone wrong. My neighbors, the Hendersons, would invite me over for dinner, and I'd watch their grandchildren visit every weekend, helping with yard work, genuinely excited to spend time with their grandparents. It felt like a knife in my heart every single time. For 3 years, this was my reality. 3 years of being forgotten, of feeling like a burden, of wondering if my own grandchildren would even notice if I died tomorrow. But sometimes, life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. The turning point came on a cold February morning in 2023, when I was sipping my coffee and reading the local newspaper. There it was, in bold letters, Henderson Ranch Equipment Auction, everything must go. Old Pete Henderson, my neighbor for 40 years, was finally retiring and moving to Florida to be closer to his daughter. The auction would include all his ranch equipment, tools, and vehicles. But what caught my eye was the last item on the list, 1985 Chevrolet K34x4 pickup truck, restored condition. I remembered that truck. Pete had bought it as a rust bucket in 2015 and spent 5 years meticulously restoring it. Forest green paint, chrome bumpers, massive off-road tires, and a winch on the front that could pull a house down. It was a beast of a machine, the kind of truck that turned heads wherever it went. More importantly, it was the kind of truck that every teenager in America dreamed of driving. The auction was set for March 15th. I marked it on my calendar and didn't think much more about it until Pete stopped by a week later. "Bob," he said, settling into Margaret's old rocking chair, "I want you to know that truck's going up for auction, but I'd rather see it go to someone who'll appreciate it." "You interested?" I laughed. "Pete, what would an old man like me do with a truck like that?" He gave me a look I'll never forget. Maybe remind some young folks that their grandpa isn't as boring as they think. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Emma and Jake, about how they'd completely written me off as irrelevant. I thought about all the times I tried to connect with them, all the unanswered calls, all the one-word text responses. And then I thought about that truck. The next morning, I drove over to Pete's place to take a look. When he rolled back the garage door, I swear my jaw dropped. The truck was absolutely gorgeous. The forest green paint gleamed like it had just rolled off the assembly line. The chrome was polished to a mirror finish. The interior had been completely redone with black leather seats and modern amenities, but it still maintained that classic, rugged look. "She's got a 454 big block engine," Pete explained, patting the hood like he was saying goodbye to an old friend. New transmission, new suspension, GPS navigation system, premium sound system, heated seats, the works. But she still drives like a truck from the '85, powerful, reliable, and loud enough to wake the dead. I climbed into the driver's seat and felt something I hadn't felt in years: excitement. The steering wheel felt solid in my hands, the seat was comfortable, and when Pete had me start her up, the engine roar was music to my ears. "How much, Pete?" "For you?" "15,000. She's worth twice that, but I'd rather she stay in the neighborhood." $15,000. That was a significant chunk of my savings, money I'd been keeping for emergencies or maybe to leave to Michael and the kids. But sitting in that driver's seat, I made a decision that would change everything. "I'll take it." The paperwork was done within a week. On March 22, 2023, I became the proud owner of a truck that could probably climb Mount Everest if I asked it to. The first few days, I just drove around town, getting used to the power and the attention. People would stare as I drove by. Teenagers at the local high school would point and whisper. Even the guys at the diner, men my own age, would come out to admire the truck when I parked. "Damn, Bob," said Henry Martinez, a guy I'd known for 30 years. "That's one hell of a midlife crisis vehicle." But it wasn't a midlife crisis. It was something else entirely. It was hope. I started thinking about Emma and Jake. Emma had just gotten her driver's license in January. Jake would be eligible for his learner's permit in 2 years. Both of them lived in Denver, where having a car, especially a cool car, was social currency among teenagers. For the first time in 3 years, I had something they might actually want. The plan started forming slowly. I wouldn't just call them up and announce I had a truck. That would seem desperate, like I was trying to buy their affection. Instead, I'd wait for the right moment, the right opportunity. That opportunity came sooner than I expected. In early April, Michael called with news that Sarah's mother had passed away. The funeral would be in Los Angeles, and they needed someone to watch Emma and Jake for the weekend while they flew out for the service. "I know it's short notice, Dad," Michael said, "but could you maybe come stay at our house for the weekend? The kids are old enough to mostly take care of themselves, but Sarah would feel better if an adult was there." My heart jumped. It was the first time in over a year that they'd asked me for anything. "Of course, son. When do you need me there?" "Friday afternoon? We fly out at 6 p.m. I agreed immediately, but I didn't mention the truck. Not yet. That Friday, I loaded a small overnight bag into the passenger seat of my beautiful forest green beast and started the 4-hour drive to Denver. The truck handled the mountain roads like a dream, and I found myself actually looking forward to the weekend for the first time in years. When I pulled into Michael and Sarah's suburban driveway at 3 p.m., I saw the curtain in the front window move slightly. Someone had been watching for me. Michael came out to greet me, but I could see his eyes weren't on me. They were on the truck. "Dad, what is that?" I climbed out slowly, trying to play it cool. "Oh, this old thing? Bought it from Pete Henderson. Figured I needed something more reliable for the mountain roads." Michael walked around the truck like he was inspecting a spaceship. "Dad, this isn't just reliable. This is incredibly cool. And you know what? What would you have done in this situation? Would you have bought that truck too?" Before I could respond, I heard the front door slam. Emma came running down the driveway, her phone forgotten in her hand for the first time in years. "Grandpa Bob? Is this your truck?" The way she said it, with genuine excitement, with interest, with the first spark of respect I'd heard in her voice in years, I knew I'd made the right decision. Everything was about to change. Emma circled that truck like a shark sensing blood in the water. For the first time since she'd turned 13, my granddaughter was actually looking at me. Really looking at me, instead of through me. "Grandpa, can I sit in it?" I tried to hide my smile. Well, I suppose that would be all right. She climbed into the driver's seat, her hands gripping the steering wheel, her eyes wide as she took in the dashboard, the leather seats, the premium sound system. Oh my God, Grandpa! This is sick. Now, I didn't know what sick meant in teenager language, but from the tone of her voice and the expression on her face, I gathered it was a good thing. Just then, Jake came slouching out of the house, earbuds in as usual, probably to see what his sister was making noise about. But when he saw the truck, those earbuds came out fast. Whoa! Whose truck is that? It's Grandpa's, Emma called out, still sitting behind the wheel. Can you believe it? Jake's jaw dropped. Literally dropped. This was the same kid who hadn't said more than hi and bye to me in 2 years, and now he was staring at me like I just performed magic. Seriously, Grandpa Bob? This is yours. Michael was shaking his head in amazement. Dad, I had no idea you were into this kind of thing. The truth was, I wasn't. But I was into my grandchildren, and this truck was apparently the key to unlocking something I thought I'd lost forever: their attention. Want to see what she can do? I asked, jingling the keys. Emma practically launched herself out of the driver's seat. Are you serious? We can go for a ride. For the next hour, I took my family on a tour of Denver like they'd never experienced before. We drove through downtown with the windows down and the music up. The truck commanded attention everywhere we went. People stopped and stared. Other drivers gave us thumbs up at red lights. But more importantly, Emma and Jake were talking to me. Really talking. Grandpa, how fast does it go? Jake asked from the back seat. What kind of engine does it have? Emma wanted to know. Can it really climb mountains? Jake added. I answered every question with the patience of a man who'd been waiting 3 years for this conversation. I told them about the 454 big block engine, the custom suspension, the winch system. I explained how four-wheel drive worked, what all the different buttons and switches did. Emma was particularly interested in the technical aspects. So you can actually drive this thing off-road? Like up mountains and through rivers? That's exactly what it's built for, I told her. This truck could probably drive to the moon if we had enough gas. Jake was more impressed by the social aspect. Grandpa, everyone's staring at us. This truck is so cool. When we got back to the house, Michael pulled me aside while the kids were still exploring every inch of the vehicle. Dad, I have to ask, what's this really about? This doesn't seem like you. I looked at my son, this successful businessman who used to be my little boy, and decided to be honest. Michael, when's the last time Emma or Jake called me? When's the last time they asked me about anything, showed interest in spending time with me? I've been invisible to them for years, and I was tired of being invisible. Michael's face fell. Dad, I didn't realize. It's not your fault, son. Times change. But I wasn't ready to just fade away without a fight. That evening, something unprecedented happened. Emma asked if she could eat dinner with me instead of in her room with her phone. Jake actually joined us at the kitchen table without being asked twice. Grandpa, Emma said, picking at her spaghetti, would you maybe teach me how to drive the truck? My heart nearly exploded. Sweetheart, you just got your license. That truck's got a lot of power. I'm a good driver, she protested. I've been practicing for months. Please. Jake chimed in, and when I get my permit next year, will you teach me too? I looked at these two kids who'd been strangers to me for so long, and I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Hope in their eyes when they looked at me. We'll see, I said, trying to sound casual while inside I was doing cartwheels. The next morning, Saturday, Emma was up at 7 a.m. Emma, the teenager who usually slept until noon on weekends, was awake at 7 a.m. and knocking on my bedroom door. "Grandpa, are you awake? Can we go for another ride?" We spent the morning exploring the Colorado foothills. I taught Emma how to engage the four-wheel drive, how to read the terrain, how to respect the power of the machine she was controlling. She was a quick learner, and more importantly, she was genuinely interested in what I had to teach her. Jake was fascinated by the navigation system and the sound system. He connected his phone to the Bluetooth and played his music, which wasn't nearly as terrible as I'd expected, while we drove through the mountains. "Grandpa," Jake said during one of our stops at a scenic overlook, "why didn't you ever tell us you were this cool?" I laughed. I didn't know I was. But that afternoon, everything changed again. Emma's phone started buzzing with notifications. She glanced at it and her eyes went wide. "Oh my God, Grandpa. Someone posted a video of us driving through downtown yesterday on TikTok. It's got like 50,000 views." She showed me the phone. Sure enough, there was my truck, with me driving and Emma hanging out the passenger window, laughing and waving at the camera some stranger had used to film us. The comments were incredible. "That grandpa is living his best life. Relationship goals with your grandkids. I want that truck. Squad goals." Within hours, Emma's own social media was blowing up. Her friends were commenting, asking questions, wanting to know more about her badass grandpa and his sick truck. Jake's friends from school started texting him too. But then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. Emma was on her phone with one of her friends, and I heard her say, "Yeah, my grandpa bought this amazing truck. He's actually way cooler than I thought. We're going to spend more time with him now that he has this cool stuff." Cool stuff. That phrase hit me like a punch to the gut. After all these years of feeling invisible, after finally connecting with my grandchildren, was it really just about the truck? Was their newfound interest in me only because I now owned something they thought was cool? That night, after the kids had gone to bed, I sat on Michael's back porch, staring up at the stars and wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. Had I just taught my grandchildren that love could be bought? That their grandfather was only worth their time if he had something they wanted? But there was something that they didn't know yet, something that would test whether their renewed interest in me was genuine or just about the truck. Sunday morning came too soon. Michael and Sarah's flight was due to land at 2 p.m., and I was supposed to head back to Montana shortly after. But something was gnawing at me, something I couldn't shake from the night before. Emma had been texting her friends non-stop about the truck, posting pictures and videos on her social media. Jake had FaceTimed 3 of his buddies to show off his grandpa's sick ride. The attention was intoxicating for them, but it was eating away at me. Was this real? Or was I just a means to an end now? I decided to test it. "Kids," I said over breakfast, "I've been thinking. Maybe I should sell the truck." The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Emma's fork clattered to her plate. Jake nearly choked on his orange juice. "What? Why?" Emma asked, panic in her voice. "Well, it's a lot of truck for an old man like me. Maybe I should get something more practical. A sensible sedan or something." Jake looked like I just told him Santa Claus wasn't real. "But Grandpa, you can't sell it. It's the coolest truck ever. And you promised to teach me how to really drive it," Emma added, her voice rising. "There are other trucks, sweetheart. Other ways to learn." Emma's eyes were filling with tears now. "But it won't be the same. Grandpa, please don't sell it. We need more time with it. With you. To learn stuff." That last part, "with you," caught my attention. But I pressed further. "What would you say if I told you I might be moving to Florida? Getting a little apartment near the beach, somewhere warm for these old bones?" The silence that followed was deafening. Both kids stared at me like I'd just announced the end of the world. Finally, Jake spoke up, his voice small and shaky. "You mean, you wouldn't live in Montana anymore?" "That's right. I'd sell the ranch, sell the truck, move somewhere where I could be just another anonymous old man." Emma burst into tears. Real tears, not the dramatic kind teenagers sometimes use to get their way. These were the tears of genuine panic and loss. "Grandpa, no. You can't leave Montana. That's where you and Grandma lived. That's where all our memories are." "What memories, Emma? You haven't visited the ranch in over 2 years." She was sobbing now. "But we want to. We want to come visit. We want to learn about the ranch and about Grandma and about you." Jake nodded vigorously. "Yeah, Grandpa. We've been stupid. Really stupid. We didn't realize. We didn't know you were lonely." Emma wiped her eyes with her sleeve. "It's not about the truck, Grandpa. I mean, the truck is amazing, but yesterday was the most fun I've had in forever. Not because of the truck, but because you were teaching us stuff, and you were patient with us, and you actually listened to us. And you didn't treat us like little kids," Jake added. "You treated us like we mattered." "You do matter," I said, my own voice getting thick with emotion. "You've always mattered. I just thought you didn't want an old man like me around anymore." Emma got up from her chair and came over to hug me. "Grandpa, we're sorry. We're really, really sorry. We were so caught up in our own stuff that we forgot about you. But this weekend, spending time with you, it reminded us how much we love you." Jake joined the hug, something he hadn't done since he was 8 years old. "Please don't move to Florida," he whispered. "Please don't sell the truck. Not because we want to drive it, but because it's part of you now. And we want to be part of your life again." I held my grandchildren close, feeling their tears on my shirt, and I knew this was the moment that would define our relationship for the rest of our lives. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. "And I'm not selling the truck. But I need you both to promise me something." They pulled back to look at me, still sniffling. "I need you to promise that you'll call me. Not just when you want something, but just to talk. I need you to promise that you'll visit the ranch, not just to drive the truck, but to spend time with your old grandpa. And I need you to promise that you'll help me keep your grandma's memory alive by learning the stories I want to tell you about her." "We promise," they said in unison. "And one more thing," I said, looking directly at Emma. "That truck is powerful and dangerous. If I'm going to teach you to really drive it, off-road, in the mountains, the way it's meant to be driven, you have to earn that privilege. That means proving to me that you're responsible, that you respect the machine and the environment we'll be driving in." Emma nodded solemnly. "I understand, Grandpa. I'll prove it to you. And Jake, when you're ready for your permit, same rules apply. The truck isn't a toy. It's a tool, and tools require respect and knowledge." "Yes, sir," Jake said, using a level of respect I hadn't heard from him in years. Just then, we heard a car in the driveway. Michael and Sarah were back from Los Angeles. When they walked into the kitchen and saw us all hugging, saw Emma's tear-stained face and Jake's serious expression, Michael immediately looked concerned. "Is everything okay? What happened?" Emma looked at me, then at her father. "Dad, we need to talk to you and Mom about something important." For the next hour, my grandchildren told their parents everything. They admitted that they'd been taking me for granted, that they'd been disrespectful and distant. They talked about how the weekend had opened their eyes to how much they'd missed me, how much they wanted to rebuild our relationship. Sarah was crying by the end of it. Michael was shaking his head in amazement. "Dad," Michael said, "I owe you an apology too. We all got so caught up in our busy lives that we forgot what's really important." "Family," Emma said quietly. family is what's important. And Grandpa, Jake added, looking right at me, you're the coolest grandpa ever. Not because of the truck, but because you're you. But there was something that they didn't know yet, something that would prove whether this change in our relationship was real or temporary. The real test came 3 weeks later. I was at home on the ranch, going through some of Margaret's old photo albums, when my phone rang. It was Emma, and she was crying. "Grandpa Bob? I need help." My heart immediately went to the worst possible places. "What's wrong, sweetheart? Are you hurt?" "No, I'm not hurt, but I did something really stupid, and I don't know what to do." She told me the story through tears and hiccups. She'd been driving her mom's car to school that morning when she'd gotten a text from her boyfriend, Derek. Instead of pulling over like she knew she should, she'd tried to read the text while driving. She'd rear-ended the car in front of her at a red light. Nobody was hurt, thank God, but Sarah's car had significant front-end damage, and the other driver's car needed a new bumper. The police had given Emma a citation for distracted driving, and when Sarah and Michael found out about the texting, they were furious. "They took away my license for 6 months," Emma sobbed. "And they said I have to pay for all the repairs with my own money, which means I have to get a job, and I've never had a job before, and I don't know how I'm going to pay for everything, and Derek broke up with me because he said I was too dramatic about the whole thing." She was crying so hard she could barely get the words out. "And the worst part, Grandpa, is that now they don't trust me with anything. Mom said I clearly can't handle the responsibility of driving, and Dad said maybe I'm not mature enough to learn to drive your truck like we talked about." My first instinct was to comfort her, to tell her everything would be okay, maybe even to offer to help pay for the repairs. But then I remembered the promise she'd made to me just 3 weeks ago about proving she was responsible. "Emma," I said gently, "tell me the truth. Were you texting while driving?" "Yes," she whispered. "I know it was stupid. I know better. You and Dad and Mom have told me 1,000,000 times never to text and drive, but Derek's text seemed important, and I thought I could just glance at it real quick." "And what did the text say? Was it an emergency?" A long pause. "No. He was asking if I wanted to go to the movies this weekend." I sighed. This was the moment that would define not just Emma's character, but the future of our relationship. "Emma, I want you to listen to me very carefully. What you did was dangerous and irresponsible. You could have killed someone. You could have killed yourself. I know, Grandpa. I know, and I feel terrible about it." Feeling terrible is a start, but it's not enough. Actions have consequences, and part of growing up is learning to face those consequences with dignity and responsibility. "But what am I going to do? I don't know how to get a job, and the repairs are going to cost thousands of dollars." Here's where I surprised her, and maybe surprised myself. "You're going to figure it out. You're smart, you're capable, and this is your chance to prove that you can handle real responsibility." "But Grandpa, I thought maybe you could help me. Maybe lend me the money, or talk to Mom and Dad, or—" "No, sweetheart. That wouldn't help you learn anything. But I'll tell you what I will do." I paused, thinking about the best way to handle this. "You come stay with me on the ranch for the summer. You'll work here, helping me with the maintenance, the animals, the property management. I'll pay you fair wages for fair work. It'll be hard work, Emma, harder than you've ever done before. But it'll be honest work, and it'll teach you things about responsibility and consequences that no amount of talking can teach you." "Really? You'd do that for me?" "I'd do it with you, not for you. There's a difference. You'd be earning every penny, and you'd be learning skills that will serve you for the rest of your life." Emma was quiet for a moment. "What about Jake? Can he come too?" "If he wants to, and if his parents agree. But he'd work just as hard as you. This isn't a vacation, Emma. This is real life. And the truck? Would you still teach me to drive it? I had to smile at that. Even in crisis, she was thinking about the truck. If, and only if, you prove to me over the course of the summer that you can be trusted with that kind of responsibility. The truck stays parked until you've shown me that you understand the difference between privilege and right. 2 days later, Michael called me. Dad, Sarah and I have been talking about your offer. We think it's exactly what Emma needs, but we want to make sure you understand what you're getting into. Emma's never done manual labor in her life. She's never been away from home for more than a week. Son, your grandmother and I raised you on this ranch. I think I can handle one teenage girl for a summer. Michael laughed. Famous last words. But seriously, Dad, thank you. This means everything to us. Emma needs to learn these lessons, and she needs to learn them from someone she respects. And after this weekend with the truck, it's clear that she respects you. And Jake. Jake's begging to come. He says he wants to learn real work from his grandpa. I think this summer might be good for both of them. Memorial Day weekend, Michael and Sarah drove both kids up to the ranch. Emma had 2 suitcases and a nervous expression. Jake had 1 duffel bag and an excited grin. As we stood on the front porch, watching their parents drive away, Emma turned to me with tears in her eyes. Grandpa, I want you to know that I'm here because I want to be, not because I have to be. I want to make this right. I want to prove to you that I can be responsible. Jake nodded seriously. And I want to learn everything you can teach me about being a man like you and Dad. Looking at these 2 kids, my grandchildren, who 3 months ago couldn't be bothered to return my phone calls, I felt something I hadn't felt since Margaret died, hope for the future. Well then, I said, let's get started. Tomorrow morning, we get up at 5 a.m. to feed the animals. Tonight, you learn how to cook dinner for 3 people using ingredients we grow ourselves. Emma's eyes went wide. 5 a.m. 5 a.m., I confirmed. The animals don't care if you're tired. They depend on us, and dependable people don't let others down, no matter what. That night, as I watched Emma struggling to cook cornbread from scratch and Jake trying to figure out how to properly set a table with cloth napkins instead of paper towels, I realized that the truck had been just the beginning. The real transformation was about to start. That summer changed everything, but not in the way any of us expected. The first week nearly broke them both. Emma, who had never been up before 8 a.m. in her life, stumbled through those 5 a.m. mornings like a zombie. Jake, who thought ranch work would be like a fun adventure camp, quickly learned that mucking out stalls and repairing fence posts was backbreaking labor. By day 3, Emma was crying from exhaustion and frustration. Grandpa, I don't think I can do this. My whole body hurts, my hands are covered in blisters, and I smell like a barn. You do smell like a barn, I agreed, which made her laugh despite her tears. But you know what? That's the smell of honest work. Your grandmother used to say that sweat is just your body's way of celebrating what you've accomplished. Jake was struggling too, but in a different way. He'd expected to jump right into the cool ranch work, driving tractors, roping cattle, riding horses. Instead, I had him doing the mundane but essential tasks, cleaning equipment, organizing tools, helping with basic maintenance. When do I get to drive the tractor, Grandpa? He asked after his 4th day of washing and waxing farm equipment. When you can prove to me that you understand how to take care of the tools we already have, I replied. A man who can't maintain what he owns doesn't deserve more responsibility. But something beautiful started happening around week 2. Emma began taking pride in her work. She'd wake up on her own at 4:45 a.m., have coffee ready for all of us by 5 o'clock, and attack her daily tasks with determination that reminded me of her grandmother. Jake started asking questions. Real questions about ranch management, about the business side of farming, about the history of our land. He wanted to understand not just how to do the work, but why we did it the way we did. And slowly, naturally, we started talking. Really talking. Emma told me about the pressure she felt at school, about how social media made her feel like she was never good enough, about how Derek breaking up with her had actually been a relief because she'd felt like she was pretending to be someone she wasn't when she was with him. Jake shared his fears about growing up, about whether he'd be as successful as his father, about feeling like he didn't fit in with the other kids at his school who seemed to have everything figured out already. In return, I told them stories about their grandmother that I'd never shared with anyone. I showed them the letters she'd written me when I was deployed overseas for 6 months in 1976. I explained how we'd built our life together from nothing, how we'd failed at some things and succeeded at others, how love wasn't just a feeling but a daily choice to show up for each other. By week 4, something miraculous happened. Emma had saved enough money from her ranch wages to make her first payment toward the car repairs. But more importantly, she asked if she could call the woman whose car she'd hit to apologize personally. "I want to look her in the eye and tell her I'm sorry," Emma said. "I want her to know that I understand what I did was wrong and that I'm working to make it right." That phone call took more courage than any physical work she'd done on the ranch. The woman, Mrs. Patterson, was so impressed by Emma's maturity and sincerity that she invited Emma to visit in person. When Emma came back from that meeting, she was glowing. "Grandpa," Mrs. Patterson said she wished more young people would take responsibility like I did. She said she was proud of me. Jake's transformation was different but equally profound. By week 5, he was managing the ranch's social media accounts, taking pictures of our daily work and creating content that showcased the beauty and importance of ranch life. His posts started getting attention from agricultural programs at local colleges. "Grandpa," he said one evening as we watched the sunset from the porch, "I think I want to study agriculture and ranch management in college. I want to learn how to make operations like this more sustainable and profitable." That's when I knew the summer had accomplished something I never could have planned. Week 6 brought the moment Emma had been waiting for. She'd completed all her basic tasks without complaint for 2 weeks straight. She'd shown initiative, responsibility, and respect for the work and the animals in her care. She'd earned enough money to pay for half of her car repair bills. "Emma," I said one Saturday morning, "I think it's time you learned to really drive the truck." Her face lit up, but then she grew serious. "Are you sure I'm ready, Grandpa? I mean, after what happened with Mom's car." "That's exactly why I'm sure," I replied. "The Emma who crashed your mother's car was careless and distracted. The Emma standing in front of me now understands consequences and respects responsibility." That afternoon, I taught Emma to drive the truck on real terrain, up mountain trails, through creek beds, across rocky ground that required skill, concentration, and respect for both the machine and the environment. She was scared at first, gripping the wheel so tightly her knuckles were white. But gradually, she relaxed into it, learning to read the terrain, to feel the truck's responses, to understand the power she was controlling. "This is amazing, Grandpa," she said as we crested a hill that offered a panoramic view of the entire valley. "But it's also kind of terrifying. If I make a mistake up here, you could hurt yourself, hurt me, hurt the truck, or hurt the land," I finished. "That's why this isn't just about driving. It's about understanding that real freedom comes with real responsibility." Jake got his turn the following week. At 14, he couldn't drive on public roads yet, but I taught him to handle the truck on our private land. His approach was different from Emma's, more cautious, more methodical, but equally respectful. "I can't wait until I'm old enough to drive this on real roads," he said after his first successful navigation of our most challenging trail. "And when that time comes," I told him, "you'll be ready for it because you'll understand what it really means to be behind the wheel." As summer wound down, Emma had earned enough to pay for all her car repairs and had money left over. More importantly, she'd regained her parents' trust and had developed a work ethic that would serve her for the rest of her life. Jake had discovered a passion for agriculture and sustainable farming that would eventually guide his college and career choices. But the biggest change was in our relationship. These weren't the same kids who had ignored me for 3 years. These were young adults who called me every week after they returned home, who planned weekend visits to the ranch, who included me in their daily lives in ways I'd never imagined possible. The truck had opened the door, but the real work, the work of building genuine relationships based on mutual respect and love, that had happened in the barn, in the fields, around the dinner table, and on the front porch during those long summer evenings. 1 year later, Emma graduated high school as valedictorian and was accepted to Colorado State University's agricultural business program. Jake, now 15 and a sophomore, spent every weekend at the ranch, learning advanced ranch management and helping me modernize our operations. And the truck? It's still here, still running strong. But now it's just one part of a much larger story, the story of a family that almost lost each other but found their way back home. Here I am today, 3 years after I bought that truck, sitting on the same porch where I used to watch the sunset alone, wondering if my grandchildren even remembered I existed. But I'm not alone anymore. Emma graduated from Colorado State last month with a degree in agricultural business and a job offer from one of the largest ranch management companies in the western United States. She comes to visit every few weeks, sometimes bringing her new boyfriend, Marcus, a young man who knows how to work with his hands and treats my granddaughter with the respect she deserves. Jake is 18 now, finishing his senior year of high school. He's been accepted to Montana State University's ranch management program, and he plans to come back and help me run this place after graduation. We've already started talking about expanding operations, maybe buying some of the adjacent land that's coming up for sale. The truck still sits in the driveway, forest green paint still gleaming, chrome still polished. Emma drives it when she visits, and Jake takes it out on the trails every weekend. But more importantly, they both understand what that truck really represents, not just power or status, but the responsibility that comes with both. Last week, Jake brought his girlfriend, Sophie, to meet me for the first time. As they were leaving, I heard her say, "Your grandpa is amazing. He's like the coolest old guy I've ever met." Jake's response made my heart swell with pride. "Yeah, he is cool. But you know what's really cool about him? He taught me that being a man isn't about what you drive or what you own. It's about how you treat people and whether you can be counted on when things get tough." Margaret would have been so proud of these kids. Sometimes, in the evenings when the light hits the mountains just right, I swear I can feel her sitting here beside me, watching our grandchildren grow into the kind of adults we always hoped they'd become. The truck was never really about the truck. It was about finding a way to connect, about proving that old dogs can learn new tricks, and that sometimes the things that seem to divide us by generation can actually bring us together. I still get up at 5 a.m. every morning to feed the animals. The difference is, now I do it knowing that my phone might ring with a call from Emma telling me about her new job, or from Jake asking for advice about college, or from Michael thanking me for giving his children the gift of real work and real responsibility. I'm not invisible anymore. I'm not forgotten. I'm exactly what I always wanted to be, a grandfather who matters. So tell me, what do you think about this story? Was I right to buy that truck, or should I have found another way to connect with my grandchildren? Here's what I've learned. Sometimes we have to step outside our comfort zones to remind the people we love that we're still here, still relevant, still worth their time. That truck wasn't just a vehicle. It was a bridge between generations, a way to show my grandchildren that their old grandpa still had some surprises left in him. But the real lesson isn't about buying things to get attention. It's about being willing to meet people where they are, even if it means learning new ways to connect. What city are you listening from? I'd love to hear your stories about connecting across generations. Leave a comment below. Hit that like button if this story touched your heart, and subscribe for more real-life stories that remind us what really matters in life. Remember, family isn't just about blood. It's about showing up, even when, especially when, it's hard.